What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1341 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Pumpkins After Dark. Use the promo code TOMIC15 and save 15% at pumpkinsafterdark.com. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James, Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 5 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast hosted by FOTM Al Grego from Moneris and Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, returning to Toronto Mic'd, is Kevin Frankish.
Like a bad rash.
Like a bad rash. I can't get rid of it. Welcome back, Kevin.
Give me a chance here. I haven't even been here for 30 seconds. All of a sudden, we're up on the air.
Well, because I don't want to talk to you before we press record. All the gold is gone. It's like we can't. And then we have to fake it. Like, pretend we didn't just talk about that subject.
Ah, yes.
You're the TV professional.
So now I haven't even had a chance to tweet this out. So live.torontomike.com.
All right, yeah, okay. So I will ramble on here, but it is live.torontomike.com.
Okay.
That's the Toronto Mike live stream. And whenever possible, I live stream an episode. And people can kind of hang out there, watch us bake the cake. But as you know, and you're a kind of a podcast expert when I talk about that. But like most people will absorb your content via podcast, like audio, because they'll subscribe to your podcast on Apple, Spotify,
Google,
you name it. Well,
Podbean.
Google's going, so it's funny.
iHeart
for sure. Google Podcasts is being shuttered, like at the end, and they're going to replace it with like a YouTube music thing. But it's the only constant is change in this podcast world, Kevin.
Yes. So hello to everybody.
And where's your suspenders?
Probably they're under here. They're tattooed on here.
Yeah, I'm gonna lift the mic a little bit just to make sure you're right in front of it. First annoying. Oh, you can actually do it. Yeah, lift that up. Okay, good. How are you doing, Mr. Frankish?
I am doing quite well. How are you?
I'm good. Like I feel good.
Yeah. And you know what? And I always ask people that question, but I kind of want a better answer because
ask me more specific questions.
Well, we go through. What do you do every time you see something? Hey, how are you? I'm good. How you doing? I'm good. But we're not.
No? Okay, well, this is World Mental Health Day. Happy World Mental Health Day to you. So this is why we kind of timed the episode today. Tell me what you mean by that. Like, is it because we've been like groomed or whatever, or basically like just don't bother people with your problems, just say things are fine and let's move on with our conversation?
That, and we've never really been taught to be in touch with our feelings. So when we say how are you, man, you could have just had the worst day. You could be stressed out, you could be in depression, whatever, but you still respond, yeah, I'm good, how you doing?
Okay, but what if you are good? Ask me for a friend.
You're not. But if you are good, then say why you're good. You know what?
Right.
I really had a good feeling this morning. I got out and the sun was out, or it was bright, or something like that, rather than just, yeah, good. Because we need to be concerned about each other's feelings.
Right.
Because this is good mental health. Being able to talk about it, being able to listen.
Really, I think it's all about removing the stigma that forever seemed to be associated with somebody who would be suffering, for example, from depression or anxiety. There was a stigma tied to that, like, oh, this person isn't able to handle this, or this person, you need to treat them with like kid gloves or something, where I feel we've come a long way in recent times, and you're a big part of this. We're going to get into it, where it's okay to talk about, maybe this is Tony Soprano's doing, right? Because he had the panic attacks and he went to therapy, and you kind of like, you can live through him, but it's not unmacho or uncool to talk about your mental health challenges.
But still, even though depression, we have no idea. You can look at all the numbers and say 22% of people report suffering from depression.
Right.
But we don't know that for sure, because 50% of people who have depression never seek treatment. So we don't know. And even that number, 50%. I honestly think it's higher. I think the cases of depression are high out there, but we feel it's not important to get it taken care of.
Okay, let me ask you about depression for a moment here, because let's say you're watching the news and you hear about, let's say, a terrorist organization attacking Israel, and they're going to strike back with great, vengeance, and civilians will be killed on both sides of this war, and this instability in the Middle East causes you to feel anxiety and possibly even depressed, because it's an unstable world. What's next? How does Russia fit in here? There's Iran is involved, and then you're worried, Trump will win the next election, and then all of a sudden you've got this black cloud over you. But that might be an environmental thing, like there's something happening triggering it. But my understanding is people who suffer from clinical depression, they'll have that for no particular reason, like this black cloud, this feeling of depression, anxiety will be there without such a monumental world event. Can you speak to the difference between I'm depressed because my dog died and I'm depressed because I suffer from clinical depression?
You've used the word clinical. So there is something called depression, and depression is the hormones in your body, the dopamine, they're all out of whack and out of kilter. So you physically, and I don't want to say you can't help but feeling that low feeling, but you do. And now, world events right now, especially with what happened in this past weekend in the Middle East, anybody is going to feel helpless. They're going to feel the world's going to hell in a handcart.
Well, you might feel sad just thinking about, teenagers or young adults going to a music festival. These are civilians, and then learning that they were slaughtered. Like, this would cause any compassionate human to feel sad and anxious about what's next, and just basically will make you feel depressed, I would think, if you were a compassionate human being.
Always remember, too, depression doesn't mean sad.
Okay, talk to me.
Depression, I think it needs to be renamed. Because you can have the happiest people in the world. I went through bouts of depression, but I was on the air and I'm happy and I'm joking. And I was feeling good. I was in a happy mood at that time.
Interesting.
So it doesn't necessarily mean you're sad all the time,
Okay, what does it mean? So, because I would think you're such a pro, I would think you could be feeling depression, which you're going to explain to me in a minute how that's different from sadness. But you would see the red light go on, Anne Muskowski style, and things, you would be able to kick it into like the persona, like an actor almost. You would smiley, happy morning show, breakfast television, Kevin Frankish, regardless of how you might actually be feeling that morning, because you're a professional.
But it doesn't even matter. You could be out sitting next to a person at their desk and they're laughing and they're smiling. In fact, quite often after, someone has taken their life, afterwards people say, well, he seems so happy. I didn't know anything was wrong. And that's it, right? Because we don't share, and we also don't ask, because there are always signs you can see, but we don't ask. And so you can walk down the street with that black cloud over your head, but you're going to hide it, because nobody wants to see anybody who is concerned about something like that, or is depressed.
So what is the difference between the depression you'd feel and sadness? Because I'm a little ignorant. I'm blissfully like ignorant, because I suffer from what I would call environmental depression, or I'm dying to know the difference, because when I imagine depression, I imagine like a sadness. But you're telling me that depression does not necessarily equate sadness. I'm dying to hear what
Not necessarily. In fact, in a lot of doctors, what they do when someone comes into them, and let's say, spoiler alert, they're suffering from depression.
Right.
And the doctor says, "What's the matter?" "Well, I just feel..." "You feel what?" "I just feel..." That is your first indication for many doctors, okay, that's depression, because we don't know what it is. We know we're feeling down about something. We know that something is weighing on us, and but we don't know what it is.
Right.
And part of actually treating depression, and depression is extremely treatable. Part of treating depression is to trace back your steps and trying to figure out why you're feeling that way, so you can have a reason and not just live with saying, "Oh, I'm feeling that black cloud. I'm feeling that black cloud. I guess that's normal." It's not normal. And if you can sort of say, "Okay, I'm going to trace this back to this incident, and then this happened. Oh, okay. So now I am now starting to get in touch with my feelings," which we don't do very well.
And what we're doing right now is a big part of it, right? Like here we are talking about it. Like, and again, we're just having a dialogue about this because you asked me how I'm doing, and I said fine. And you're right. That's what does that mean? Fine. Like let's drill in and parse that. But we're going to get back into this because not only is it World Mental Health Day, but you have a new gig and a new podcast which is all about mental health, and we're gonna really find out what's new with you. But off the top, I've already established the fact you're not wearing suspenders, but you didn't wear suspenders your last 3 visits either. I'm just bugging you about that. But I want to tell people where they can hear more from Kevin Frankish on Toronto Mic'd, because this is your 4th visit.
It is.
Next visit, you get a jacket.
We've had some interesting visits.
Oh, yeah, well, that's it. So let me run down the descriptions I wrote at the time and just touch on these, because I do think you're one of the more fascinating Toronto Mic guests. Your first visit, it was episode 221, so people can find.
So what are you at now? You're at 13.
This is 1341.
So I was back at 200. Wow.
221. So you were early on the show, relatively early. Mike chats with Breakfast Television co-host Kevin Frankish about his years on CKVR. I have some more CKVR questions, actually. And City TV, and what it was like working with Ann Romer, Liza Fromer, and Dina Pugliese.
Pugliese.
Say it again.
Pugliese.
Pugliese. Yeah, there's an extra syllable I always miss. There's also a frank, pun intended, a frank discussion about Jennifer Valentine. Mm-hmm. Do you remember this? She was fired on, I think, April Fool's Day, and I thought it was a joke. And
everyone thought it was a joke?
What timing that was. Okay, CP24 Breakfast. I guess they were coming for you. And the Target. Oh, we talked about the target on your back. Like, we had a very frank discussion about the fact that you were a long-time employee, which I translate as receiving a healthy amount of money for what you do, like well-deserved. And we talked about how that might put a target on your back in that year, whatever that was.
Yeah, it definitely did put a target on my back. I mean, especially these days, more so now even before then. But there were some personality conflicts there as well with new management, and trying to defend Breakfast Television. But yeah, we have been together for a while, Mike.
So that was the initial, which was great because you're still at Breakfast Television, and I had been kind of used to the fact when somebody was still at the mainstream media gig. They came in and bullshitted me more than you did. I'm not saying you didn't bullshit me, but you
wait,
didn't.
Did I?
You normally they come in and I get fed a bunch of bullshit, and then I kind of know it is, but this is sort of, you need to save your job or something. But you were kind of honest, especially about the Jennifer Valentine thing. But then you came back for episode 492, and this is what I wrote. Mike chats with Kevin Frankish about why he's no longer on Breakfast Television. So you come back to talk about why, because it was I remember it was like a midweek shaky announcement. You seemed really kind of taken by it, and you're like, my last day is Friday, and like, this is not how it's supposed to go down, right? And it's like, Friday is your last show, and then I think there was some nonsense announcement about how you're going to work on documentaries for City.
Yeah, that was a face-saving thing for the company.
But you knew, okay, so again, I'm being very honest with you, this is the Homer Real Talk, but you shoveled me a bunch of bullshit on 492, and I think because you knew it, you said, I'm going to come back and talk the truth about everything.
Yeah, because you're under certain obligations, and a lot of those are legal obligations, and so you try and be as open as possible, but you can't always be as open as possible.
But hey, you came back a third time. 748 is that episode, and this is where we were in the backyard actually, because I think it was
I remember that,
pandemic times or whatever. Mike speaks with Kevin Frankish about how he copes with depression and anxiety, the value of listening, his departure from breakfast television, and his new podcast. I think I might borrow this description for today's episode. So you basically came clean about the fact that you got the tap on the shoulder. You were out Friday. You talked about this personality conflict with management, and that there were no documentary features for Kevin Frankish at City TV.
No, there weren't, and I didn't retire, and I always try and be as open and honest as I possibly can, and and that was why I became a mental health advocate, because I found being open and honest about that actually helped some people.
Oh, without a doubt. So quick catch-up questions and then back to what you're doing now. But I am very interested in knowing your thoughts on, I'm going to get it right this time, Dina Pugliese.
Mm-hmm.
She quit. She, as far as I can tell, she did not get the tap.
She did not get the tap.
She tapped them.
I want to confirm it. They begged her to stay. And why wouldn't you?
So she basically said, I'm leaving breakfast television, and she's been now off the air for months. What are your thoughts as somebody who is a co-host with Dina for so many years?
I think she's sorely missed, but I'm glad she made that move, because getting up at that time of the day is trying. It's hard enough. Dina is such a huge family person as well. And so that really cuts into that.
No, I can imagine. What time are you guys getting up again when you were hosting?
Well, I was getting up around 2:30. She was getting up
you
around
were in Barrie.
Yeah, but she was getting up at 4:30. I was stopping to do stories on my way in and that.
Right. You what time did you go to bed to wake up at 2:30?
I tried 7. That was rare. But it was usually 9:30 by the time I went to bed.
Okay. That's tough right there. Okay, so Dina says basically, I'm changing my lifestyle. I don't want to wake up at 4:30 anymore. And she walked away, and good for Dina being able to do that.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on Meredith Shaw joining Breakfast Television to take the role of Dina? Any thoughts at all on that? I don't even know if you've tuned into Breakfast Television.
Well, I'm jealous. Because starting off with Breakfast Television I remember that feeling, right, and being a part of something. So definitely wishing her all the best, but just a little jealous of that feeling of the newness of it.
I can tell you, Liza Fromer came back on this program to kick out jams just when she was doing like a 2-week fill-in, like post-Dina, pre-Meredith. And she was very clear about how she wanted that gig again. Like she wanted to go back to Breakfast Television.
It's a great gig. And the reason it's a great gig is because the audience is your family, becomes your family. It's such a great gig just to go on like you're doing right now. We're just having a conversation.
Right.
And it's nice. It's nice. I love having conversations with people.
And I love seeing your face. I got to say, I was happy. I saw you outside, made you move your car. We took a photo. And I'm like, I like this man's face. Like I felt warm fuzzies seeing Kevin, my good friend, FOTM Kevin Frankish again. So Meredith Shaw, also on FOTM, she joined Breakfast Television. Here's a fun fact for you and the listenership. FOTM Josie Dye, that's FOTM is friend of Toronto Mike. Of course, you know you're an FOTM, is taking Meredith's spot on Chum in 2024. So I guess after the holiday break there, she'll be taking that. So she's going to say goodbye to her Indy 88 family, and she'll be on Chum. So she's taking the Meredith spot.
Yeah, and that's the business, right? I was fortunate enough to be able to stay with the same company basically my entire working career. But you move. You get the tap on the shoulder sometimes. Sometimes you want to move. Sometimes you get a better offer. But that's what this business is like.
I met Moses for the first time a couple of weeks ago.
For the first time?
Yeah. I never met him. I literally had walked by him, walking along Grenadier Pond in Hyde Park. Yeah. But I'd never had a conversation with Moses. But what was your relationship like with Moses Znaimer?
It was pretty awesome. I had only really talked with him maybe 4 occasions. But they talk about parallel universes. Well, Moses is in a different universe than the rest of us. And you realize that, and you know that, and that's what makes him Moses, right? And what I loved is that he would just on the spur of the moment, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this major show. We're going to change the name of this channel here. We're going to do this. it was that innovation and always thinking of what's the next great thing. Interesting man. He could be a very, very abrasive person as well.
Well, I've had a guest in the last week call him an asshole.
Yeah,
so,
there are people who are going to call him that. He didn't care, because he believed in what he was doing, and he didn't. The thing with Moses is he goes full steam ahead, damn the torpedoes and damn anybody else around you.
Yeah, I mean, we call him a visionary. He's the executive producer of everything in that empire before he was pushed out. But now, I always wondered, Kevin Frankish would fit right in, I would think, at the Zoomerplex. So I'm always wondering what people's relationships are like with Moses, the more than a biblical figure there.
Yes.
But, okay. Any thoughts, Kevin? Again, we're going to get back to mental health because we got to talk about the new gig and the new podcast, and I got more mental health conversations I want to have. But any thoughts at all on the fact that Entertainment Tonight Canada is, I guess it's done now. I think last week was the last week.
Yeah, so sad. So sad, Sangeeta and everybody there. It was a fantastic show. The bottom line is that the bottom line in television is not good right now. It's a dying medium, sadly. We just had Nielsen's in the U.S. Report that for the first time ever, more than 50% of people are now not watching. Essentially not watching television. They're cutting the cable.
Right.
And it's sad because I hate to see my industry going, but I mean that is the way. Newspapers have died off. Radio has changed. Radio did a much better job at adapting to climate than newspapers and television. And television, I think the problem with TV dying is that there are too many executives out there that are still with the old model. No, we're still going to have these huge contracts and we're still going to pay this much and we're still going to depend on millions of people watching us. Well, they're not. And so now the success of streaming services and the success of any broadcasting medium now is no longer tied to the more people watching. It's just targeted more. And so if you can get someone listening to your podcast and 200 people listen, well, sometimes that's better than 20,000 people listening because you have 200 dedicated people who
Hold on, I'm going to write
engage.
this down. I need this for the sales department because no, that's music to my ears because these are not passive listeners. People who listen to a podcast, literally, if they have a phone call or I don't know, they have to pick up the kids, they pause and they come back and pick it up exactly where they left off. Like they're there typically to devour the entire muffin.
Yeah, and there's fewer filters, and I think people appreciate that more now. So yeah, the mediums change, and television is changing. Unfortunately, most of the executives in television these days are dinosaurs, and they don't know how to change, and they think that television will come back. It's not.
They're sort of married to the old model, even though one of the great disruptors of all time is the internet and what came with that and everything going digital and on-demand streaming, et cetera, et cetera. Like you cannot. I always am curious. I talk to FOTM Bob Willett about this all the time. Like radio. What's radio competing with now? So radio's competing with your Spotify or Apple or whatever playlist. Radio's competing with podcasts. Radio's competing with me right now. Like you only have so many hours in the car. What are you going to listen to? And they seem to kind of be stuck on that same old model that was employed in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
They're stuck on that model, but it seems to be working. I think there's enough to. Well, I especially.
Well, you would know.
Yeah,
we're going to get to that in a minute. Go on.
But I mean, they're still developing. They're still changing. But I think they're realizing that they're a choice now, and that people will choose radio, or they'll choose Spotify, or they will choose satellite radio. But I think there's room there now for everybody, and radio seems to be weathering this storm a lot better than television or newspapers did.
Okay, well, let's talk about radio and how it applied to you since your last visit. So I noticed when I read the description for visit number 3, Kevin Frankish, visit number 3, we did not speak at all about the region. The region is a radio station in, I don't even know, the office used to be in Scarborough. I don't know if that was a secret.
Yeah, and then it was in Markham. Now it's in Vaughan.
Okay, yeah. I was just in Vaughan for this Halloween event called Screamers, and I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But tell me like, how did that opportunity come to be? Because you basically rejoined FOTM Ann Romer on the region.
Yeah, Ann Romer was there, and it's a great little private independent radio station. And I will say to you, it is one of the most important radio stations in the GTA because of that independence. Yeah. The other radio stations are now, you don't know who owns who. Well, I do, Kevin. It's my job to know who owns but
who.
It is.
But Rogers has 4, Bell has 4, Chorus has a few.
And they can be so, sanitized and pre-programmed and unfortunately they're slashing their newsrooms to almost nothing. Look at CFRB. Oh my gosh, what a fall from grace. Right. One of the best news radio stations that we've ever had.
Right.
And it's now just a shadow of its former self, unfortunately.
And I'm with you 100% because basically Bell Media has come to maybe, they're looking at the bottom line and they're saying we have a news division, and I think they still have, are they merged yet? There's a CP24 news, and then there's the CFDO/CTV Toronto/CTV National News. Like, are those two newsrooms merged? Are they two separate newsrooms?
I think they're two separate newsrooms, but
what time is it? Because that's going to change any day
because
now.
I know I worked in North Bay. At, it was Mid-Canada Television then. Then I worked in Barrie, which was CKVR TV.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Now they're both now CTV.
Right.
So it's CTV Northern
Ontario.
So
now they share basic. Yeah. So if CP24 and CTV have separate newsrooms, there's a clock on that. Like, that's going to end soon. So I think Bell Media's reasoning is like, why do we have a separate News Talk 1010 newsroom when we in the same family, we have the CP24 and the CTV newsroom.
And here's why.
Tell me.
To the executives at Bell, you know what? There's a different culture of listeners who go to CFRB. There's a different culture of people who watch CP24. There are a different culture of viewers who watch, CTV2. Whether it's in Barrie or whether it's in Kitchener and the like. And this is why I want to get back to what I was saying, that 105.9 The Region is one of the most important radio stations. It's because of that independence, because they don't answer to anyone else. And they cover local. We've lost local. We're losing local.
That's very true.
Big time. And this is dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. So we're losing our local coverage. Newspapers are all but gone. They really are. And it's just, Toronto Star owns everybody. And
or Post Media does.
Yeah. And so you get into communities where just a couple of weeks ago, they lost local papers.
Yeah, the Metro chain shut down. Yeah.
And this is important because you can get national and international news anywhere. But if your city council is doing something they shouldn't be doing, soon we're not going to know about that.
100%, Kevin. So we speak now from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So Toronto still has a lot of local news coverage. Okay, we're the big smoke here. I always think about all these smaller markets, like you're pointing out here. The smaller markets, their newspapers are shut down. Their radio has Roz and Mocha simulcast in from Toronto. Like, there's with the voice tracking and the simulcasting, there's very little local content anymore. So the local radio has been slashed. The newspaper has been shut down. This is why when I hear, and again, I've been saying this quite a bit in Toronto, when Pierre Poilievre touts defunding the CBC, I'm like, okay, how many communities in this country rely on CBC for any semblance of local coverage? So not everything's coming out of Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver or whatnot. Go ahead.
We stop piling on CBC?
Right.
CBC does an incredible job.
Agreed.
CBC is independent, and they are definitely operating at an arm's length from government and ask the tough questions. You know what? Just because you're not hearing what you want to hear doesn't mean, or it doesn't agree with your opinion, doesn't mean that they're being controlled or puppeted. I mean, the truckers protest. Of course, they were all over. Well, the CBC doesn't. They're just the government channel. No,
so insane when I hear that commentary.
They were just as tough on the government as they were on the truckers when it was needed. CBC does an incredible job. They still have the budget that is necessary to cover local. So
we should triple. If anything, I always hear defund. I'm like, no, triple.
Well, or okay, then maybe it's time for commercials on CBC Radio. Maybe it is time for them to pay a little bit more on their stuff. But not only are they unapologetically Canadian, but they also provide local coverage in places like Thunder Bay and places like Sudbury and the like as well. And the last to do it. And I might argue the point that we still have a lot of good local coverage here in Toronto. They're big. They're big. So that means little neighbors, Leaside, New Toronto, you name them. Mm-hmm. Are they really getting local coverage, or are they only getting the exciting stories of the day that have to do with the big city at large? We've lost our local neighborhood papers. East York. The
Etobicoke Guardian was a newspaper delivered in this neck of the woods, and it's no longer being printed.
And so many of the stories that ended up on the big TV and radio stations in Toronto and the newspapers came from local papers. They were the ones first to sound the alarm when something was happening in a neighborhood. And I just don't see us being covered as well in our neighborhoods anymore.
No, I agree. And I have a question for you on the CBC, because I happen to consume a lot of CBC, and it is, I was looking for coverage of the war now. I guess they're calling it a war, but the war in
Israel and
Hamas and Israel,
the Middle East.
And I went to CBC, and I got a pretty, but I thought it was a very rational, straight up the middle experts talking. And I felt it was not emotional. It was very good coverage, and I absorbed a lot of that. But when people say, "Oh, it's just a mouthpiece for the government," it's like Trudeau's propaganda machine. I always wonder, like, okay, what didn't we just come off like 10 years of conservative rule in this country? Like literally before Trudeau won, was it 2015 or whatever? Wasn't Harper our prime minister for didn't he get 2 majorities? Like, so is there argument that during that 10 years it was a mouthpiece for the conservative government? Like, to me, it doesn't hold water. Liberals aren't always, in the government, forming a government in this country. Like, no, of course there's a separation between the government in office at the time and the civil servants working at CBC.
And it's all about that misinformation. You know what? Trudeau's responsible for the high food prices. Trudeau's responsible for the gas prices. Trudeau's responsible that my kid scraped his knee on his bike. Yeah. If Poilievre was in, he would be responsible for it. We always want to find somebody to blame for our woes and our problems. And so the CBC, unfortunately, because they are a national broadcaster, and thank God they are, because they're the only thing standing between us and just a complete American takeover of our media, just because they don't agree with your ideology, you need to sort of say, okay, I need to hear the other side. And this is, and let's bring it back to the Middle East crisis. And I mean, it doesn't, people are still going to hear me the wrong way. I know that because they have a feeling like it is, Israel was attacked and it was horrible. End of story. But we have to look at the big picture. And this is where effective media comes in. Yes, what Hamas did on this weekend was horrible, deplorable, and they are a terrorist organization. But what we need to look at is the big picture. We have to talk about the Palestinians. I'm sorry, we have to think about the Palestinians. We have to think about the Israeli people as well. We have a situation that was manufactured years ago. And, if you want to get back into the history of Britain and how they tried to bribe the Arab world and the Jewish world during World War I with their own land, we need to go back and say, okay, this is what created this problem. So it was wrong what happened, but we need now to say, okay, how do we come together and say, okay, how can we make this better? How can we, and I hate to say it, live in peace, because that is such a far way away. But that's why we need a media that looks at both sides and they look at it without bias. If you listen to CNN today, they're just like they're flying the Israeli flag and they're just sounding so, oh, this is terrible and that's not an unbiased news reader. I need to tell you what's going on. This happened, and this is why this happened.
Right. Well said. But back to now, bring it back home here to the region. So maybe give us a little bit, since we need an update since your last visit. Like why and how do you join the region? I know FOTM Jim Lang is there. We mentioned Dan Romer. Is Sunil Joshi still there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sunil's
so a
still
lot
there.
of FOTMs at the region there. Holy smokes. Why did you join? How long were you there? And then I'm very interested in why you left.
I was there for 2 years, brought there because of Tina Cortez, who was the news director at City TV years ago. And then she brought along Ann Romer. She brought along, and she is a fantastic boss. I mean, she is just, she's incredible. And so I enjoyed it. I did 2 years, but I knew it really wasn't in my wheelhouse, right? Music and entertainment and that. I mean, I was okay, I guess, but my heart really is in storytelling. And I had a chance to join Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences in Whitby as a communications specialist, and I jumped at it.
So you got a new job.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the role is communications specialist at Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences. And this will nicely bring us to your podcast. We'll get to a minute. So what I'll do is I'll mop up some, hey, Kevin Frankish is coming back. Then you get these questions, and I want to serve the listenership. They're very important to me, Kevin. I am going to so CKVR. So Johnny, who probably hasn't heard your first visit, because we covered this in depth in your first episode, but Johnny was asking, you got to ask about the old CKVR days. I missed that station. It had such a small town feel to it, speaking of local news. And then Gare Joyce, good FOTM himself, says there was something pretty cool happening at CKVR back in the 80s when you, Kevin, were breaking in. It was smarter and a more fun alternative to a lot in the big smoke. At least it seemed like they were having fun. So maybe we could just for nostalgic sake, do you mind maybe revisiting these old CKVR days that a lot of people have nostalgia for?
Yeah. I mean, it really was a great gig. It was a great first gig. I was blessed to have had that, but it served its community well. I mean, the late great Bob McIntyre, late great Kevin Marks, they were local. And again, I use that term unapologetically local. And they cared about the hockey rink in Stayner, and they cared about Little Britain and the weather there. People heard their town names there. It was still small town television done on a grand scale, because we sort of went from Parry Sound all the way down to Steeles, which became difficult because you come into a metropolis and then you move into the rural areas of the near north as well. So, but it was fun, and I think we did a good job covering it. What they're doing now, I'm not sure, because I haven't watched them very much at all.
Well, it's like now it would be like, I guess it's like CTV Barrie.
Yeah, it's CTV Barrie, it's CTV Kitchener, CTV London.
Right.
They're all essentially the same now.
But they're doing, I haven't actually tuned in. I haven't tuned in. I'm still calling it the new VR, okay, Kevin? But they're like, I'm sure there's a local news team that still does their nightly newscast from Barrie.
I would hope so. And the reason I'm not watching it, obviously, is I'm not living there. So,
so what is your relationship with Barrie? So remind us, like you're not living in Barrie. I think a lot of people who knew you from Breakfast Television remember you driving in from Barrie every day.
Yeah, after 30 years, my wife and I called it Splits back in about 2018. Very amicably, we still talk quite often.
I've been there, yeah.
And so there was no reason to stay in Barrie, so I moved down. We already had a place downtown Toronto, so I had a place right at Bay and Gerrard. But you know what? About a year and a half ago, I started to think, this city is it's not fun anymore.
Oh,
the traffic, the people, the situations, the crime. It wasn't the same as it was. You ended up just staying in upstairs, and not venturing out. So I moved out to Newcastle. This was before the job in Whitby, and lo and behold, I get a job in Whitby, 20-minute drive away.
All right, silly question. Remind me where Newcastle is. Like,
Newcastle, and I'm glad you don't know. In fact, I shouldn't.
I feel like I should know.
I don't want anybody to know because you go all the way up to Oshawa. And it's just the rat race, it is still, you don't know when you've left Toronto. So it's still that rat race. And then you come to this opening, this clearing.
Like north of?
No, east. Okay. You keep going along the 401.
Okay.
You're still going along the 401.
Which I do that. I went to Montreal in August. Okay.
And then you go through Bowmanville. And then you get to this little village of Newcastle, which I just was in Cape Cod this summer. It is basically Cape Cod in the GTA. But there are thousands of homes being built right now at the 35-115 along.
They can build homes without carving into the greenbelt?
Yeah, apparently. Don't get me started, Mike.
Well, that's what you're here for. I'm here to wind you up. Let's go.
But the beautiful thing, I live down south of the 401, so it's already as far as it's going to be built up. All those homes are going up in the north, but it's an indication that GTA is now stretching beyond Oshawa because people are wanting to get out of the rat race, but they're bringing the rat race with them.
I think even the great Ziggy Lawrence moved to Port Hope or something like that.
Beautiful area.
Yeah, because let's face it, if you're not a multimillionaire, it's tough to, I speak as a homeowner in Toronto. You saw my Rolls Royce outside.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? My son was watching this, it's a new documentary series on David Beckham because my youngest son is a soccer fanatic and Beckham dreams of being a soccer star or whatever. And he's got this, my 9-year-old's got the same dreams. And we were watching, there is a great scene, I'll just say a great scene, where Posh Spice from the Spice Girls, did you ever meet the Spice Girls? Did they ever come on breakfast television?
No.
Okay, they missed out here. But she's talking about her working class upbringing and David Beckham hears it from the other room and he pokes his head in and he's like, be honest, like he's talking to his wife here, be honest. And she's like, well, we were, working class. And then he's like, what car did your dad drive when he dropped you off at school? And it turns out her dad dropped her off in a Rolls Royce. And it's like, he's not taking, I'm like, okay, thank you. Like, call out the bullshit. That's what we're here for. Like, I'm tired of hearing about the working class struggles of the Rolls Royce family. Like, it's
now in defense.
Okay, let me hear it, Kevin. You got a Rolls Royce.
No. Oh, good Lord. The exact opposite. In defense, though, there is a certain embarrassment about being raised rich. There's a certain entitlement that people assume you must have had. Don't lie about it.
Don't tell me you're going to do documentaries on City TV when that's bullshit.
However, I can understand why, perhaps, and I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. Okay, I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. She might be completely wrong, but I just think, you know what, you want to tell people, oh, I grew up poor, I grew up in the shack, I did this.
Right, it's a better story.
People have more respect for you than, oh yeah, my dad dropped me off in a Rolls Royce, and I didn't want for anything. So I'm going to hope that's what she was lying about.
Well, he called her out on it, just at least be honest about your working class upbringing. Very interesting moment I caught in the hour I spent with David Beckham, and I was thinking, I don't know. Again, people, you're born with, your hair is going to end up like it is. I was blessed with very thick hair here as I push 50, and I hope it hangs in there because but I don't do anything to it. I don't color it. Beckham's got a great thick head of hair. I think he's about my age, but it's like no white, no gray. And I'm like, is he dyeing that hair, Kevin? Do you know what David Beckham's doing to his hair?
Well, when I was talking to him last night at dinner, I don't know. But again, okay.
What's going on with that man's hair?
But I'm trying to look at all sides. The pressures to remain looking young, especially for women, you're going to color your hair. You are going to get Botox.
Have you ever had Botox? You have any pressure to look young? Because you're a TV star.
No, because I've never really cared about how I look. Honestly, well,
that's obvious.
I am who I am, and accept me for who I am. But there definitely is pressure to try and keep youthful looking, and people know you're 50. People know you're 60. So I don't know what the big deal is, but it's keeping up appearances, images.
Well, I produce a show for Mary Jo Eustace, who she was just in town visiting her parents, and I had coffee with her, and she's in her 60s, and she looks amazing. And I'm like, oh, you look amazing, and she's like, yeah, she does Botox, and I was like, oh, I guess like that's sort of tough for any woman who's decided she doesn't want to do Botox, because like it's almost like that's a new default baseline is that you have a little bit of Botox and you do a little touch up here and there, which is sort of like why when people say, oh, just let all the everyone in that 100 meters should just be allowed to do steroids, like let them all do steroids. But if you're the healthy person who doesn't want to inject their body with anabolic steroids, you're kind of screwed over because the baseline has moved because you've let everybody use performance enhancing drugs. Like, so it's like, oh, you're using Botox too. It's like, okay, so now my eyes don't know what they're seeing anymore. It's all smoke and mirrors now.
Well, I mean, the impression of people around you is you need to look younger. I felt a definite pressure of my age when I was, trying to find other work and trying to find other gigs. There were gigs I didn't get, and I knew I didn't get them because of my age.
Interesting. Do you think it's done for you? Because we're going to talk now more about your new role at Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences and your new podcast, which is called the Mental Health Podcast. There's a good SEO name for you. People just Google the Mental Health Podcast.
I know. How easy is that?
And then they'll have to figure out which one's the Kevin Frankish one. But,
Yeah.
that'll be obvious. Okay, so you're doing that with Ontario Shores. So we're going to dive in more discussion, more more Frankish discussion with like, I want to talk about this. Like I don't want there to be any burden, any stigma talking about, mental health. And I want to find out how you're managing your depression. And I have so many questions on this front, but I promised Gene Velitis, whose ex-wife was on Toronto Mike last week.
I saw his comment yesterday about the
So when good, let me set it up by saying this. There is on the official City TV YouTube channel, they have a clip of you having a freak out moment at breakfast television. But when I watch this, it is a obvious parody. Like you are faking it. You're complaining about these complex words, and the example you use, I think, was something like anticipation.
Anticipation, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like to me, it's no doubt in my mind that Kevin Frankish is pretending to have a freak out moment, and they're making it look like Blair Witch Project style, like it was secretly recorded by a staff member.
The funny thing was, that's my phone that recorded it. I gave it to the floor director because we had just done a story about someone caught on camera. It was an American anchor.
Right.
Can't even remember who it was, having a freak out moment.
Because it does happen.
And I think the way we had presented it was, yeah, but I never have a freak out moment. And then so, Kev, we have some tape here. And so I had asked my floor director to go out behind and to do it as though he was doing it like very candidly and
like a secret recording.
So I say, why are you writing these big words for me? Anticipation? What is that?
So I watched it because Gene said, I'm wondering about this Frankish freakout moment, and I watch it because at first I'm thinking, oh, is there did you get caught? Because a lot of city people got, for Christmas parties, they would, the outtakes, and you'd see Jojo Shinto doing this, or or Gord Martineau famously, with Anne Muskowski and, saying some things that might be homophobic, et cetera, and then none of that's any good. But your freakout moment was clearly staged and humorous.
Yeah.
But you tell me, are people missing the nuance? Like, are they?
Yes.
Okay,
well, they don't have the context, right? They don't have the context.
But even I didn't have the context, and it was 100% clear to me that was not a real freak out.
Yeah, and you know what? In the end, it doesn't really matter, to me.
Well, it does if people think you're an asshole because you're freaking out.
Well, I am. That's the thing. See, most of my freakouts and my problems and my shortcomings happen live on air. I didn't hide. I remember once I had to come on the air afterwards, and I realized I had to apologize. One of our floor directors, we're gonna hate the fact I can't remember her name, but just lovely lady, and she had said something to me, and then the camera came back on and my mic came back on. And I went, "Oh, shut up," But it was in a playful way. You know how you might say to a friend, "Oh, shut up,"
right?
But the only part that got on the air was that shut up. Then we went to commercial. And so immediately I get social media posting, what did you do? I had to come back on and explain.
Egomaniac Kevin Frankish.
I explained that, we were just having a friendly conversation, and she came on and said, yeah, we were just, and then I said to her, get back behind the camera. But it's just, it is a lot of fun. I had my good days, I had my bad days, but I didn't have bad days like that. Promise you.
No. I thought it was obvious. Okay, so we're going to get back to World Mental Health Day. I didn't even know it was World Mental Health Day.
That's because there's Mental Health Day, there's Mental Health Week. Those are other months, other days, but the UN has declared today World Mental Health Day.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Kevin, every day is World Mental Health Day.
It should be. It really should be. But it's a good day to talk about it. The most important thing with mental health is talk. That is the most important thing. What happens when you go and see a counselor, a psychiatrist, a therapist? You sit there or you lie there, whatever. And I've been to a few. And you do all the talking. Wait a minute. These people have gone to school for years to help me with my mental health.
Some analysis would be nice.
Yeah,
right?
but what they're doing is they're getting you to talk.
Right.
And so many times I've been sitting there and I go, oh, because I'm talking about it.
Right.
Because they know the questions to ask to lead you towards helping yourself. And that's the thing with depression and anxiety. It's treatable, and you can treat it. And I strongly suggest you get some professional help to lead you that way. And it doesn't have to be a psychiatrist. It can be someone who's good with CBT. It could be your own family doctor. But talking about it and admitting things to yourself and being honest to yourself.
Many a guest of Toronto Mike has left telling me that they felt like they were in therapy.
Yeah.
And they felt good about it as opposed to feeling rotten about it, which is good. This will make you feel good as well, Kevin, before we get back to that, because as you can imagine, I have questions. But I do want to give you some gifts for, now that I learned you came from Newcastle. Did you come from Newcastle today?
No, I was at work in Whitby. So almost from Newcastle.
You know what? Even if you say Whitby, and I think it's like, to me, it's like, oh, you came from like New Brunswick today. I'm like, holy smokes. Oh, wow. So
yeah, I wish you'd tell all the people on the 401 that.
Did you consider taking the private jet, or is that just for...
it's being repainted right now. My face wasn't large enough.
Or a helicopter. Okay. So multiple gifts for you, Kevin. Where do I begin? Okay.
What's this?
Okay, that is a smart speaker from Moneris. You connect to your device via Bluetooth, and you have two things you're going to do. One is you're going to listen to the 5th season of Yes, We Are Open, which is a Moneris podcast that has won awards. It's an award-winning podcast hosted by FOTM Al Grego, and Al went east for this new season. There's been a fly, and I've been trying to catch it was it the chopsticks? Miyagi caught the fly with the chopsticks, and I've been trying to grab it out of the air here, but I'm easily distracted. It's like squirrel.
Yep.
No, there's a fly. I have to get this fly. But I'm back to the great Yes, We Are Open. Al went east, and he talks to small business owners, and he collects their stories, and it's inspiring as heck. He went to Newfoundland, he went to the Maritimes, and this is season 5. So season 5, now dropping new episodes. Get inspired, Kevin. Listen to Yes, We Are Open. But enjoy that speaker. That's a quality speaker. Yeah,
that is cool.
Ed Keenan, it's his go-to speaker in his home. Like he says, it has no right being this good. Put that down in the tagline. It has no right being this good. Okay. I also want to give to you a lasagna. Do you enjoy Italian food?
I love Italian food.
So it's in my freezer. So when you leave, that box
I got an empty box. I got an empty box here.
I mentioned smoke and mirrors earlier.
It's like what do your guests don't realize that it's an empty box till they're home?
I have to reassure them. I promise you that it'll be full of delicious palma pasta lasagna before you leave the home. Enjoy that. That's they don't have it in Whitby, but they have it in Mississauga and Oakville. So every time you get a chance to pick up some palma pasta, do it, because it's a family-run place and it's delicious, and they sponsor Toronto Mike. So that's all the reasons.
Good people.
You need good people. Speaking of good people, Brad Jones at Ridley Funeral Home has a podcast called Life's Undertaking, and it is inspiring too. But they sent over, Ridley Funeral Home wants you to have measuring tape. You never know if you have to measure something, Kevin. So that's courtesy of Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921.
And isn't that great about podcasts? You can talk about funeral homes.
Well, they don't talk. Oh, what about WKRP? They were talking about that funeral home.
Ferryman's.
Right.
Ferryman's.
Right.
Bye-bye. Yes.
No, there was no funeral home sponsor in the time you were at Breakfast Television?
No, I don't think so.
Because it would have been a shitty chain. I'm just saying. What I like about Ridley is that it's a family. Again, they live on the premises, and they didn't sell out to the big conglomerates. That's what's happening. Go watch 6 Feet Under. This is actually like the last independent, family-run, we live on the premises, Toronto funeral home. Like, it's important to me. So much love to them. And Great Lakes Brewery, of course, sent over some fresh craft beer for you.
They've been sponsoring you for how long now?
They were the first sponsor. So it's been, I think, 7 or 8 years. Yeah. And we just had an event there, and we're going to have our next event at Palma's Kitchen on December 9 at noon, and that'll be TMLX 14. Couple more quick hits here is because we're almost at Halloween, and Pumpkins After Dark is an award-winning Halloween event in Milton, Ontario. You can buy your tickets now and save 15% with the promo code TOMike15. So get you and your family to Pumpkins After Dark in Milton. You'll love it.
Birthplace of the Robertson Screw.
I honestly didn't know that. I always wondered where the Robertson Screw was invented.
The building is still there in Milton.
Okay, all I know about Milton, besides the fact they have this great event called Pumpkins After Dark, is the James Snow interchange. Or whatever
the Parkway,
the Parkway. So shout out to James Snow. Learn how to plan, invest, and live smarter with the Raymond James, The Advantaged Investor podcast. Whether you already work with a trusted financial advisor or currently manage your own investment plans, The Advantaged Investor provides the engaging wealth management information you value as you pursue your most important goals. So that'll help you with the money they gave you to make those documentaries on City TV. I can't wait to watch those.
So everybody has a podcast that sponsors you. Does Palmas have a podcast?
No, they should. Like an Italian food podcast.
They need to have that.
I'll talk to Anthony Petrucci about that. You have a podcast. Tell me everything you can about the Mental Health Podcast.
All right. Well, the Mental Health Podcast, we produce it and record it at Ontario Shores, which, by the way, I can't say enough about. They are... such a the best kept secret when it comes to mental health. The innovation, the research that goes on there is amazing, and the people there truly care about their clientele. Truly, it's amazing.
Well, tell me a bit more. Like, I'm learning about them now. So they're in Whitby.
They're in Whitby.
Yeah.
Now this goes back. Okay, this goes back to a time when they were originally called the Whitby Insane Asylum. So we're going back. Sure. Then it was the psychiatric hospital, and then it was the psych. So this was our past with mental health, right? We thought all mental health was, you had to be insane, you had to be crazy, and if you had a mental health issue, you were crazy. And so we're trying so hard to peel back all of that stigma, and it's an open place. I remember when a buddy and I, in North Bay, they had the psychiatric hospital up on the North Highway, and we would drive through the parking lot and think this was really, this is like driving through the parking lot of a prison. Right. It's not that. This is public facing. You can walk in anytime you want. It's bright. It's beautiful. It is where people can turn who may have an eating disorder, who may have severe depression, severe anxiety, among other issues. Like we're seeing such an increase in bipolar and schizophrenia out there as well. So there's some incredible research being done right now, and I'm hoping to cover a lot of that and just really bring it to people's attention.
How often will you drop new episodes of the Mental Health Podcast?
I'm going to try every 2 weeks. What do you think? You tell me.
Well, you're asking the wrong guy. I like a weekly podcast, to be honest. I get into a rhythm of a weekly podcast, and yours truly goes nuts. He does like 3, 4, 5. I just dropped Randy Bachman is the guy before.
Randy Bachman, I know.
Oh, sorry.
How is
he? Randy Bachman.
Oh, sorry.
I know, but we've been.
I'm still going to call him Bachman.
Yeah,
sorry.
Well, he told me I'm Randy Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive. So. He was actually unbelievable because, as you know, I like 60 to 90 minutes. This is like my request.
Yeah.
And Randy's people said, "Well, Randy can give you a half an hour, basically." And then I lost a lot of my leverage because it was Randy Bachman, and I'm like, okay, I'll do a half an hour of Randy. But I did steal 10 minutes, because I'm a nasty son of a gun.
Yeah.
So I did 40 minutes, but I basically think I would say, and I did add a little, like for example, Randy was on The Simpsons, and we talk about how he ended up on The Simpsons and that experience. So I will drop in his appearance on The Simpsons. So I did a little post dropping in some audio.
I remember seeing an interview with Sting. And he had said,
"It's great on The Simpsons."
Exactly. He said, "Here I have these. I have all this notoriety. I have all these albums, hits, but my kids really didn't think I was a success until I was on The Simpsons."
And he was much like you on Toronto Mike. He was an early episode of The Simpsons, relatively early.
Yes.
And he was so great because Timmy was in the well.
Yes.
You've seen the episode, Bart dropped his...
Marge, he's our best digger.
Yeah. he was a great digger, and that I love that episode for multiple reasons. But one is they satirize the "Tears Are Not Enough, We Are the World" type charity singles.
Sending our love down the well.
We're sending our love down the well, and it's like I think about that all the time because, of course, you might notice this. 1985's "Tears Are Not Enough." Did you notice Randy Bachman was not a part of this charity single?
No.
Have you ever wondered for a moment, one of the great, especially in 1985, right, with not only the Guess Who, but Bachman Turner Overdrive, he was taking care of business. How is he not part of this, with Neil Young and Joni Mitchell? Like, how is Randy Bachman not there? Burton Cummings is there. Anyway, I asked him, so it's all in this episode, the true story of why Randy Bachman did not participate in Tears Are Not Enough. And it's like, I had been wondering that for so long, and then suddenly I'm on the line with Randy asking him anything I want. And it's like, oh, this is it. Like, this is 11 years of Toronto Mike, of 1,339 episodes, was all so I could have this moment with Randy where I ask him why he's not a part of Tears Are Not Enough.
And?
I want you to listen, man. Okay. I want you to listen. I don't want to give that. That's a spoiler. I can't give that one away. But I do want you to listen because I think if you like Randy Bachman, you're going to enjoy the chat. He is a great storyteller. He has a great memory. He's 80 years old, but you would not know it. This man is just as sharp as a tack. And I think that, I know he hasn't been a member of the community for a while, but I think his lifestyle, which rejected, hard drugs and drinking like a lot of rock stars, did serve him very well and created an 80-year-old who is basically sharper than I am. There you go. There you go. Okay. Gosh. Okay. So how are you recording the podcast? Like, is it going to be you in your home studio? Are you going to be with somebody? Like, I am naturally curious because this is episode 1141. How are you going to bake that cake?
We are doing it. We have created a studio at Ontario Shores.
Is it as nice as this one, Kevin?
It is not nearly as nice as this one.
You have to duck to get into the studio.
No, we've got lots of headroom. I'll say that. But it's a video. There's a video offering as well, and
like YouTube or something.
Yeah, it'll go up on the Ontario Shores YouTube channel. I'll do some links to that on my social media.
Well, you are a TV star.
So it is. It's interesting. John Opshaw is our technical producer, and he does some incredible work at Ontario Shores. He shoots all most of their videos and anything electronic. John takes care of. So
any relation to Willie Upshaw?
I'm sure there is not, but he's great to work. He's actually retiring soon, sadly, just as I get to work with this great guy.
But I think you would be into producing your own show when he retires.
I do. I'm able to produce some of it right now, so I do have my hand in that. I'm not a very good follower.
Elaborate on that.
I like to have. I don't like to come sit down, record it, and walk away. I like to sort of prep it, and like I do prep the show. I get the guests and decide on the topic.
Right.
But I just have to have my 2 cents worth in there.
Yeah. Well, your name's actually, is your name on the show? No.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I was going to say this is the Mental Health Podcast with Kevin Frankish or something like that. Very, very, very good. I have a question because I've been having this conversation with some other people about their podcast, and I know my thoughts on it, but I do produce a lot of podcasts that don't follow this format. But Humble and Fred, which you're on tomorrow.
I'm on tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow morning, Kevin Frankish on Humble and Fred, and it's a day late, but you guys can also discuss... what is the day again? Mental Health.
World Mental Health Day.
I got to put that in my calendar for next year. I got to send you a card.
Hallmark makes a card.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. So you're on Humble and Fred tomorrow. I am a big fan of what I call the punk ethos of live to tape. Like where you sit down, all the audio and everything happens in real time. And we converse, and when it's all said and done, that is the episode, instead of what a lot of people do, which is they do what we're doing now, and then they take that audio, or somebody takes that audio and sits with it and carves it up, and maybe they eliminate an maybe there's a part they feel is kind of boring, let's get that out of there. Oh, this didn't go anywhere, we'll carve that out, and then your hour chat is like a half an hour podcast that's been carved up. And personally, I like to and I listen to podcasts. I like to hear how it transpired in real time.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
if somebody says an or something, hopefully it's not too many, but that I do that periodically myself, and I'm sure you have in your day as well. Like, that's just part of the authenticity that you're listening to a heartfelt conversation here.
Yeah, definitely. And so I will do an edit if something goes technically wrong that isn't
technically wrong.
isn't explainable. If a fire alarm goes off, I'll keep going. But there was a case with this podcast where we're shooting it, but we're also shooting video. So
Right.
the background monitor stopped. So it only took a second to put on, and if we were live on the air, I would be fine with that. But it would have been hard to explain to someone. I don't think they would have been interested. Oh, looks like our videos came to an end or stopped for some reason, so we're just going to hit replay on the computer. There we go. Because you'd be sitting there saying, what's he talking about? So that's the only time. I agree
And that's
with you.
understandable. 100%.
I want it to be everything in there that's possible.
What is your target? Do you have a target ideal length of each episode?
I was looking originally for 20 minutes. We're right now talking with a certain radio station. They might play it, so they need 43 minutes. So I'm trying to aim towards that.
I feel like your intro might be 22 minutes, so you might not have a problem fulfilling that. So there's a radio station that might air this.
Maybe, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think I'm hoping it can help a lot of people. I really do, and I mean that honestly. I mean that from the so authentically that I'm hoping. I have had letters, emails, cards in the past. People literally saying, "You saved my life. You changed my life. You stopped me from doing something stupid." And I didn't even you don't even realize it. You don't realize what little thing you can say right now that makes someone go, "Oh." But I've learned so much in being a mental health advocate, and that is the one thing, the one word, that changes everyone's outlook, that makes them feel better, is the word that is the exact opposite of depression. And that word is hope. If you have hope, you can deal with any mental illness you have. You can deal with depression and anxiety. If you can say, you know what? I know I can get better. I know I will get better. I know that this isn't all there is, and that because when I had my first panic attack, I cried. I thought my career was over. I thought this was all there is, and this is the way it's going to be. I had no hope. And it wasn't until my doctor had said to me, he says, you know what you need is some hope. You just need to know that this isn't the end.
It's treatable.
It is very treatable. Now, it's not always perfect. I still have episodes of depression. I had one yesterday. You still have sometimes. It's not perfect.
What does that entail exactly? Since we're so open and honest about this subject matter now, which I love. What did your episode, what did it look like yesterday?
It just becomes this overwhelming feeling, almost of doom. This overwhelming feeling that everything's wrong. This but you don't know why. If it was cloudy outside and you can get it just looks so miserable out there. But in your head, in your mind, so you just go into these episodes but then I've learned what to do. I've learned the first thing, stop right there and start to examine how you feel, why you're feeling it that way.
Okay.
So, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling oppressed. Is there a reason for it right now? What's happened? You quite often will find out that what triggered it was something really small and insignificant. And then you once you establish that, it seems to take away the bite. Because when it comes right down to depression, is your body and your mind doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. It is trying to get your attention. It's trying to say to you, you're feeling this way for a reason. Please figure it out. So we're getting into the parasympathetic nerve system, and we're getting into the sympathetic nervous system, and there's a lot at play here. There's a lot in our primitive minds that doesn't understand the modern world.
Right.
And so we get this way, but the more we ignore it, the worse it gets. And it grows bigger and bigger and bigger.
So is this akin to identifying triggers, essentially? Like
It could be, and if you can identify a trigger, good on you. That's wonderful, because when you're dealing with anxiety, the catchphrase is control what you can control. If you can't control it, so you've got anxiety tomorrow that there is, let's say, take Thanksgiving, for instance.
Yeah.
You get anxiety. I'm going to my family, and I know my dad is going to call me out for this and for that. And my mom's going to say I look terrible and I need a shave. Like, whatever. Right. There's going to be conflict. They're going to say that stuff. You can't change that. So therefore, you can't control that. What can you control? You can control how you react to it, how you absorb it. So if you can go in there and say, yeah, I know that Aunt Sarah is going to say this. I know she's going to say it. But I'm not going to argue her back. I'm just going to say, okay, that's okay. And then excuse yourself, and then go scream in the pillow. But don't allow yourself to lose what little control you have.
What about, so earlier in this conversation, you talked about essentially chemical imbalance. Like this is not an environmental thing triggered by an event or something, but like an actual chemical in the brain. You would be surprised at how busy your brain is and how the neurons are firing here. I would be surprised at how busy my brain is. I think there's dust balls and dust bunnies.
Sometimes they manufacture too much of cortisol or dopamine, and sometimes not enough. And there has to be that balance. What's also happening is your body quite often, and this is what's happening in a panic attack, is your body is being controlled by your parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system. And so, and I hope I get this right, which is which, but your sympathetic nervous system, I should say, it's designed to protect you. So right now you look outside your cave and there is a saber-toothed tiger there. And so your sympathetic nervous system says, okay, what we need to do right now is we need to raise your heart rate, because you may have to run, you may have to fight or flight. You've heard fight or flight.
Sure.
We're going to have to raise your blood pressure. We're going to have to perhaps empty your bowels. We're going to have to take blood from certain places and put it to other places, because you might need it in your joints. So whatever's happening in your body, and you can feel it physically. You can feel like, I feel like I'm going to throw up. I feel like my heart is racing like crazy and I'm starting to sweat now.
Sure.
So then what happens is, okay, tiger's gone. Parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and says, okay, everybody back to normal. So blood go back to where you're supposed to be. Heart rate come down. But our brains are still very primitive.
Right.
And they don't understand that you have a presentation at work tomorrow. And because it's saying, oh, there must be a predator outside, but you're not giving it the all clear to the parasympathetic nervous system to say, okay, everybody, you go back to normal. No, the parasympathetic nervous system says, oh, you're still worried about it? Oh, the tiger must still be there. I'm not stepping in. So now it just keeps going and building and building and building. And we don't know what that feeling is. So when we have a panic attack, it's again, our check engine light coming on. A panic attack will not hurt you. It has never hurt anybody. It is a warning to you, and we're taking it the wrong way. Let's say you never sneezed your whole life, and nobody ever sneezed their whole life. A sneeze is a violent thing.
Yeah.
Your heart can stop for a millisecond, and you feel like your head's going to explode with some sneezes.
Sure.
Now, you do that the first time. Holy crap. Can I say holy shit?
You can say shit.
Okay, holy shit, what was that? It would scare the hell out of you. But it's normal. Your body is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So we have to look at panic attacks a different way. We have to start looking and saying, what are you trying to tell me? Listen to it. Don't just have them and say, oh, thank God that's over with. Oh, I'll get some medication for it. Yes, medication is important. I'm not going to poo-poo medication. I'm on medication. But medication only stabilizes you, and it's only meant to stabilize you so that you're in a better way to try and control it. So you need to call your parasympathetic nervous system, and you need to say, listen here, you got to kick back in. I know what's wrong right now. I'm going to calm down.
So how did you learn all of this? Because you're right, the two-prong approach, if you will. Like, so the medication, that's one channel, but meanwhile, the talking about it and learning how to cope, basically, so you can live with your depression. But how did you learn all that? Is that trial and error, or did you talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist? Like, when did you realize that you can stop down and sort of assess and then, cope?
I had some great therapists, some great counselors. Dr. McIntyre at St. Joe's, fantastic. But it also came from trial and error. This
Sure.
works, this doesn't work. But the main thing came from talking to others. What works, what doesn't work. And I would say something and someone would say, oh yeah. So when you get those eureka moments, you start to think, hey, what did I just say? Oh, okay. So you learn trial and error, experts, but also just talking. And let me tell you another way to deal with a panic attack. So you feel
interesting.
You feel one coming on.
Yeah.
Tell someone. Talk to someone, because they're going to ask you questions. And it's so funny, you forget you're having one. So you sit down and you say to someone, I'm having a panic attack right now. What? Really? You don't look like it? Because you don't. What does a panic attack look like? It doesn't. I've had them on television before. No one knew. So, but once you start saying, I'm having a panic attack. Oh, what's that feel like? Well, I don't know. And this is something you can do for someone as well, is press them on it. What does it feel like? No, really, tell me. I mean, what, because it's hard to describe.
Right. And
then you say, well, do you know what brought it on? And the other thing too is when you're talking, you tend to breathe better. And when you're breathing better, you are kicking your parasympathetic nervous system into gear. You're saying, nope, I need to control my heart rate. Oh, okay. And that's why, and I'm going to teach you box breathing in just a moment. I'm going to teach you that. It is amazing what happens when you take control.
Very interesting. A long time ago, somebody told me if you're ever having a moment of great stress, to go brush your teeth. Like if you go into autopilot, doing an action like that will calm you down because you don't need to think about brushing your teeth.
You're distracting yourself.
Right.
And that's why when you do breathing exercises, and you hear a lot about breathing and how important breathing is, and if you're into meditation, breathing is everything. And there's a reason for that. It's because our breathing is part of our autonomous nervous system. So it just happens. We don't control. Our body controls it. So if we're going to breathe heavier, then we're breathing heavier and we don't know why. But if we sort of step in and realize we're breathing and feel that breathing and monitor that breathing, we're doing what we can. Remember, take control of what you can control, and you can control your breathing. Right. And the thing with breathing is the breathing in and out is important. The pauses are just as important.
So you, Kevin Frankish, you're living with depression because you have hope. I see your T-shirt. Everyone will see the photo we take by the tree. Hope. And hope comes from the realization that your depression is highly treatable. So you have hope. You can live with your depression. Quick question, because I am curious, Kat, and you mentioned you're on some medication for this. Are there any negative side effects to the meds? Like, is there you have to trade something off?
If there are, I don't know what they are.
Oh, that's good.
I'm not feeling that.
That's
but that is another important thing. Unfortunately, when it comes to medication, we're very much still in the dark ages. We have not really seen much new in the way of mental health medication in years. And quite often and most times it's trial and error. Okay, try this. Here's 100. Try 150 of this. Maybe we'll bring it up to 200. Maybe we'll bring it down to 100.
Right.
So it's very much trial and error.
It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So it's
so we need to do better at balancing people. Medication is not like an aspirin, and an aspirin doesn't. Think about this: an aspirin or a Tylenol does not cure a headache. It masks it, but it allows you to function. So mental health medication, the pills, they're not going to cure you. Then all of a sudden, oh, good, my depression. No, they're going to balance you so you can say, okay, now I can think rationally, because you can't when you're in the middle of a bout of depression. And that's why talking about it, and that's why people around you are so, so important.
Well, talking about it, I mean, I'm sold on that being a key part here, but I do want to get real with you for a moment. So let's say you're, I don't know, a highly stressful, you're working for a B2B software company and it's go, 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 go all the time to like, if, ideally in this world we're talking about, you can share with people, I'm having a panic attack. You can be open about you suffer from depression. And I always wonder about the fact when a big boss person is building this, dream team to land the big account, they pass you over because of the fact that you might not be able to handle the stress that will come with the position. Like, this is a reality in the world. And that, I think, in a nutshell, is why, depending on your job, obviously, but some people keep those health facts close to their chest.
Yeah. And the really sad point of that is that many companies, the larger ones, offer help for that. So maybe you can't handle the stress. I don't know. But it's something they need to be talking about, and you need to be talking about, and you need to realize, well, wait a minute, maybe I can't. Maybe they're doing me a favor.
Well, at the very least, you have that conversation, the private conversation you have with a therapist or a psychiatrist. Like, at the very least, you have that outlet to talk about it. And that, of course, is private. The big boss person isn't privy to what happens on that call or that in that room. So the key is find somebody you trust and start talking. Don't keep all that inside. This is nothing to be. There's no shame in this. There's no stigma. Would you think there's shame in somebody who disclosed to you that they were diagnosed with cancer? No, you'd be like, how can I help? How can I help? And
or you have a cold. You go in, you don't hide the fact you're having a cold. Well, you know what, buddy? You're going into work. You're going to spread it to everybody else. They're going to spread it to everybody else, maybe to their elderly parents or something. So yes, you're getting in there, but it's okay. Because you can, first of all, you can see you have a cold, but it's normal.
Right.
Mental health issues are normal.
Normalize it. And
the more we realize that, the better off we'll be. But we don't. This is one of the biggest problems with mental health care right now. We concentrate more on shutting the door after the horse is bolted from the barn. We are great at trying to have therapy for people who are in full-blown depression, full-blown anxiety. What we're not very good at is starting in kindergarten, in grade 1 and grade 2,
right,
teaching people how to get in touch with their feelings and what depression feels like and what you can do about it. 80% of our triggers and traumas that cause depression later in your 40s and 50s happen when you're a kid. So we're waiting 20, 30 years to actually treat the problem. When you think about, let's say a house burns down in Toronto, then another, then another, then another. Our reaction is not to build another fire station. Let's just keep putting the fires out. Our reaction is, what's going on? Wait a minute, people aren't changing their batteries and their smoke alarms. Let's have a campaign on that. Let's spend some money on that. Do you know by doing that, you're saving billions of dollars in lost property just by finding what the cause is?
100%, Kevin. Let's find out, I just learned, real quick aside, I just learned that up in Georgina, there was an issue with people. They were firing something off in their attic to get rid of raccoons, okay? I can't remember the term for this. Some raccoon bomb, I think they called it or whatever. And then once you gather the data and you look, it's like, oh, this is a fire hazard, and this explains a uptick on fires we've been having in this neighborhood of Georgina because the raccoon bombs is becoming a thing. It's like, so let's educate the people to let them know maybe raccoon bombs are not a good idea in your attic.
And then what would happen if we were better at preventing? And besides, just sort of quickly on that note, I've covered several fires in houses where people have because putting floodlights is another way to get rid of raccoons in your attic, but those things are hot.
They get really hot.
Yeah, and there are many fires caused by that. But
shout out to Georgina. Okay?
What when we're talking about healthcare spending, so think about mental health issues. Bad mental health causes eating disorders. By the way, the number one cause of death in mental health illnesses is eating disorders. It causes addiction. It causes heart disease. It causes it's been linked to triggering some types of cancers. It has been linked to job loss, marriage breakup, classroom behavior, etc. All these things that we spend billions of dollars on. Yeah. Like, could you imagine if we could just cure heart disease?
Right.
Think about that, and by just spending a little bit, because mental health is cheap, right? It is really cheap when you spend some money on it. You're not buying MRIs and all sorts of things like that.
Right.
So if we would just spend a little bit more time on mental health, we would have emergency rooms that aren't overcrowded. We would have better marriages, better test results in schools. The sky's the limit on things that
Stop making so much sense, Kevin. Seriously, there's no room for that in today's society. So, firstly, I'm actually really happy. I think this is a perfect fit for you. And now that I've learned you're actually living in Newcastle, that's even better for you. I think you're at Ontario Shores Center, and this is
for mental health sciences.
Oh yeah, full sentence. Yeah, absolutely. I need more characters for that. And your new podcast with Ontario Shores Center for Mental Health Sciences is called The Mental Health Podcast, and it sounds like so. Is there an episode in the can right now? Like, can
just
somebody
the first
pause?
one is up now.
Okay, that's everything. Yeah. So literally, FOTMs, you can pause this episode right now and subscribe to the Mental Health Podcast, and you can hear the first episode. And tell me about the first episode. It's you and
first episode. We have two guests on. Dr. Phil Castle is
Dr. Phil is on your program.
Dr. Phil.
He's
I got Dr.
Quack,
Phil.
right?
Oh, yeah. So
don't put him on your podcast.
We're just, for this one, we're just starting at the very basics. What is depression? What is anxiety?
Right. Yeah, which is great because I love to listen. People I love suffer. I will say I don't believe I suffer from clinical depression, but I'm very, very interested in what it feels like, how you identify the triggers, how you cope beyond medication, and this is why when I have you on the program, and I'm thinking of other people on the program, I have these conversations like Michael Landsberg and other advocates, mental health advocates. I absorb so much and learn so much from you because for many their only go-to on this is literally Tony Soprano saw those ducks flying away from the pool and he had a panic attack, and then he went to see a psychiatrist, and then there you go.
And this mental health podcast is just not for people who suffer from depression or anxiety or bipolar or that. They're for anybody who has mental health, which is 100% of the population. How do you prevent yourself from going down that hole? What about if you have a loved one? You might be able to better understand them.
Yes.
What if you have a coworker who has maybe suicide ideations that you don't even realize? We'll deal with that. So the idea is just to talk about good mental health, good advice. When we talk about suicide, a lot of people shy away from saying that word, and they think, so if you have a coworker or you have a loved one who is, you have the feeling, I think they're going to hurt themselves. People are saying, they don't want to say, are you going to commit suicide? Are you going to, I shouldn't say commit. I got to stop saying that. You don't commit suicide. You die by suicide. Committing, you commit a crime. You commit murder. You commit robbery. You commit adultery. You don't commit suicide.
This, you want to talk about stigma. The conversations around suicide are extremely minimal. I think a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about it. It is a very sad topic. If anyone knows anyone who died by suicide, I will say that just this past weekend, I was at an event at the Phoenix concert hall, and it was like an anniversary of the CFNY Live Airs, and there was a big tribute there to Martin Streak. Martin Streak died by suicide. And on my ride to the Phoenix for this event, I decided I'd go back and listen to we had what they called it, the Party for Marty, 10 years after Martin Streak passed away. And I had it in the Toronto Mic'd feed, and I'm listening to people talk. And one of the person I listened to is David Marsden, FOTM David Marsden, who hired Marty Streak at CFNY. And he said something to the effect of, I'll paraphrase David Marsden, but he said something to the effect of, I was on the phone with Martin Streak. He was very excited about, because he just got let go. He was fired by 102.1 The Edge, and like 2 months prior, he was very excited about what's next. We were going to get together, and we had all these plans in place. He was really gung-ho and excited about what comes next. And then David Marsden tells a story that like 2 days later, Martin Streak died by suicide. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, we hear this a lot. Like you kind of touched on it earlier. That person was so happy, seemed so positive. I never would have guessed they were suffering from depression. And this line, and we hear, they took their own life. Nobody was more full of life. Nobody was a happier person, smiling, full of loving their life and everything. The last person I'd expect is that person would die by suicide. And that ties in that you simply don't know what anybody is dealing with. You don't know what mask they presented to the outward world.
And everyone says similar things at the funeral home. He seemed so happy.
Right.
I wish I would have known. I would have done something.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Now, we all have the best intentions, but a lot of us shy away from trying to confront someone. It is, and we have a guest on the show on this podcast, Christina Fuda, who is our mental health first aid instructor. So she teaches and she talks about suicide in this episode. It's okay to say to someone, "Hey, Mike, are you thinking of suicide?" It's okay. You're not giving them the idea. This idea of mentioning the word suicide is going to give people some ideas.
I never thought of that, Kevin.
That's right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go off. But there are different stages and there are different depths and there's different levels. But if you could be there and say, well, if you're thinking about it, I have this feeling you're thinking about it. You're giving away all your stuff, or you're talking about not being I don't belong in this world, or I don't, you start picking up on these things and you can say to them, I'm here.
This ties into how we started the convo and maybe how we should end it. And I will say one gentleman who did come over and talked about their thoughts of, they were planning a suicide, and he came over. I want to say Ben Rayner's first visit on Toronto Mike was really like he just wanted to talk about this and what he was thinking. He was planning this, and we really should talk about this more. But this comes back to what we started the conversation with. You said, "How are you?" And I said, "Fine." And then you said, like, "No, really, how are you?" And it sounds like maybe we start and end there, and that you ask these platitudes. These are all reflex actions now. Like, "Hey, how's it going?" "It's going okay. It's going okay." And then you move on to the next pressing issue in the world. Like, are they going to fire Atkins on Thursday or whatever? Like, is Atkins gone? What's going on, right? But maybe it's drilling into the syllabic auto response of fine when somebody asks you how you are. Like, let's pull at these threads. Like, are you really fine? Like, maybe you are really fine, but many people who are not fine will answer the question, "How are you?" with a fine. Let's talk about Blue Jays.
It is extremely likely that there are people out there right now, or a person who is contemplating suicide right now, and they think it's the only way out. The world will be better off. I love this shirt. I'm going to buy it. I just saw it. On the back is printed, "Dear person behind me, the world is a better place because you are in it." And it is so true that anybody who is removed from this world removes themselves. They remove so much that is important. So it may seem like the only way out right now. It's not.
So if that's a good point, because you mentioned earlier, if you have the 200 listeners, it's like 20,000 breakfast television viewers. Well, I can tell you there's many more than 200 people listening right now. And if any one of them has thoughts of dying by suicide, what would you, Kevin Frankish, want to say to them right now? They're listening to us right now.
That there is hope. There is hope. We get back to that 4-letter word, hope. And our job is to find it. And if you can't find it, get someone to help you find it. There is always hope, and there's always an alternative. It may be a little harder, but you know what? The world is going to be so thankful that you're still here.
Hope. It's the good 4-letter word. And I like that t-shirt.
Hey.
Words matter.
Yeah, they do.
And you're on Humble and Fred tomorrow. Don't
I'm
forget,
on Humble and Fred
8:15. You're going to do it by Zoom, though.
Yeah.
This is a much shorter drive for you from Newcastle.
Everybody do something nice for yourself today and just realize that you're an important cog in this gear we call life.
And subscribe to the Mental Health Podcast. And congrats again, and good luck with the Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences. They're lucky to have you, and I can't think of a better person for the gig.
Thanks so much, Mike.
They're lucky to have you, you're lucky to have them, and we're lucky that you're an FOTM because you're one of the good ones. And that brings us to the end of our 1,341st show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike. Kevin, you're at Kevin Frankish on the Twitter machine there. Is there anywhere else you'd like people to follow your activities?
At Kevin Frankish. Instagram is The Real Kevin Frankish.
The Real Kevin Frankish. Love it. And much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. You've got your fresh cans there, Kevin. Palma Pasta, your lasagna's in my freezer. Raymond James Canada. Subscribe to The Advantaged Investor from Raymond James Canada. Moneris, Season 5 of Yes, We Are Open is now available. Subscribe, enjoy, get inspired. Recycle My Electronics. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca to find out where you can drop off old tech, old electronics, old devices so they can be properly recycled. Pumpkins After Dark. It's TO Mike 15. That's the promo code. Get your tickets today because Halloween is here. You've got a couple of, 3 weeks left, if my math is correct. Get those tickets now. Enjoy. And Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow when I face my fears. That's all I'm going to give you right now. I'm facing my fears on Toronto Mike tomorrow. See you all then.
Wants me today.